Evening, everybody. Welcome to another show. I'm going to do a review here. It's a few days overdue. Tom Rabbit brought this one out about 5 days ago, and it's there's a little bit of context to this one. So it's Darth freaking out over the usage of pronouns, but it's more than that. It's about Darth criticizing other Christians for respecting the pronouns preferred by certain people on Clubhouse. And believe it or not, this came a few months ago, which is actually where this previously thing comes from. Tom Rabbit has a clip from about 6 months ago, a little spat between Darth Dawkins and a Clubhouse user named Matt Adams, and then it rolls into something uh, more recent with another guy named John Lee, who, if anyone is familiar with the Clubhouse groups over there, some of that sphere, John Lee and Matt Adams also are not. Well, yeah. The less said about some of the contributions they make in some of those conversations, the better. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be reviewing tonight. Let me take a look in comments here and see if I can feature a few people. Repo Sandman, good to see you. Sick, what's up? Nice to see you. Peebo, okay, yes, that is fucking creepy. You're welcome, Jeff. Yeah, Peebo, if that was you, I haven't said the name of the person that shared. If that was you, yeah, thank you. I know who it was when they DM'd it on Twitter, but I don't know what their YouTube handle is. So, Dharma's greatest hits. Good to see you. Big fan of your videos. And thank you. Yeah, I would love to take credit for that AI art, but it's not mine. It might be Peebo's, but it was given to me by a fan on Twitter. So, Aunt Jer, good to see you. Josephus, Maria, yeah, JL Warren, hello, www.darthdawkins.com. JL dropped, I think it was a community post earlier today. He's got some squeak toys, little 4-inch squeaky balls, I believe, with Darth Dawkins art on them. So yeah, get them now. Mobile Marmoset, good to see you. I'm not sure if I know who you are. That might be new. If it's your first time, welcome. And 8:30, good to see you. All right. So with that being said, we'll get right into this without any kind of further ado. There really isn't any other context to set up for this. So, yeah, I guess we'll get going. I'm going to shrink this down, and let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. That's better. All right. As usual, you know, as always, the rules apply. If you can't hear it, yell at me. Jack Burton, hello. I'd be a hypocrite to criticize Dee Dee's pronoun use since I call him a bitch quite often. And hello, Red Triple X Devil. Nice to see you. Here we go.
Previously on
Tom Rabbit.
The rest I
That's
don't
not.
know.
Can you? I haven't informed you of it, of what they've been
Yeah,
doing.
I mean, no, I don't think you.
Okay,
you just
now you're
told me,
lying.
You just told me
Now
that people
you're
are trolling.
lying. Now I
No,
told
you've
you
never
in
given
private.
me any details
I've
about
told
it.
you
Sorry.
in private. I told you in private. Do you have a memory lapse?
Yeah, actually, I don't. Could you refresh my memory?
Okay, I'm not going to go through it publicly what I've gone through private with you. Okay,
Darth,
I'm not going to dignify them.
Having a conversation.
But you just brought it up, right? I mean, that's what I would have said if I were Matt. Like, okay, but you just brought up something private in public. Okay.
Say, I know that
you have a
said
memory
that some
lapse.
people
Okay,
have
goodbye,
slandered
Matt.
you.
Yeah, bye, Matt.
And
hit
that they have
hit the
done
road.
certain things.
Hit the road, Matt. Here's another people pleasing, butt kissing, professing Christian.
He kind of held up in the butt kissing thing, like he was looking for another verb there. That was a little weird. I wonder what he was searching for.
Who doesn't give a rat's rear end about one of his fellow Christians who's been a friend of his. Okay. And he just wants to deal with these people like these people are not conducting themselves.
Darth has been a friend of Matt Adams. Wow. I don't know how many. I don't know if I would go and consider somebody that treats me like Darth Dawkins treats people as a friend. But hey,
publicly in an utterly vile manner. Okay.
6 months later.
Okay, thanks to James is Tired for getting me this clip. We're missing the very beginning of it, but I'll give you the setup. So Matt Adams was talking about a story about when he was debating Brenda or something like that. And he refers to Brenda as a she or a her, some kind of pronoun of that nature. And Darth immediately jumps on him and starts to, well, discipline Matt for using that pronoun. And this is what happened.
To somebody's delusion.
Well, think about it this way.
I'm not gonna put up with your bullshit, Darth. Don't come
Oh
on
my
stage
God,
and run
man.
your damn mouth. You understand me?
Wow.
You've already.
man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put up with that, John.
I
Look, she wants to call her. I just call her that.
like the sassafras that's coming out of my. I'm not going to put up your nonsense. Come in here and run your mouth. Matt's really leaning into that. So,
Darth wants to run his mouth, then he can just leave. I'm not going to put up with. Look, okay, well maybe you disagree with it. Fine,
Well,
but I just do it just for the sake of argument.
I did want to bring up a point, Matt. Like we call people atheists. I don't recognize.
Well, hold
I
on,
think
John.
everyone's a-
John, Darth, if you want to come back up on stage and have a conversation about what we had in the past, we can do that. But don't come in and lecture me after what you pulled several months ago trying to get me to turn on James. Do you understand that?
oh, so he's saying it was about trying to turn on James. I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know what that's about. And if anyone does, feel free to share in the live chat. But there maybe a little bit of drama there. But this whole thing with the pronoun thing, this gets a little bit more interesting after this. But I don't know how long Darth had been in there in this particular group, but Matt, John Lee, and I think that's Johnny Hawes. I think that's his name up there. And the guy in the right corner with the cowboy hat avatar there. I don't know if that's a Clint Eastwood avatar or what. It's kind of small on my screen. I think that's Daniel Nero. And I think Darth has a real problem with him because he keeps dropping his name later on in this video. So that guy's going to come up a little bit later too. But Darth was really heavy-handed with Matt 6 months before, and I was talking about the Brenda thing. Now, I don't know if this ties into what Matt's talking about here. He's like, "Oh, Darth, you're trying to stir up some stuff to get me, I think pit him against James." By James, I believe he means James is tired, who's another Christian. And for context, let's keep in mind that all of this is going on. Like Daniel Nero up there, who's quiet for this, I think is an atheist, maybe, I'm not sure. But Matt, John, Johnny, these guys, and James is tired being referenced. These guys are all Christians, as well as Darth. So yeah, it's just interesting to see, this kind of loving community come together and work through things in a spirit of brother. Oh wait, never mind. That's not what's happening.
Go ahead, John.
Wow, Matt, that's surprising. But I just want to tell Darth. We call atheists all the time. I don't believe that they're atheists. I believe that they're theists.
Matt,
John, I don't know why you're entertaining.
Hey, Johnny, are you gonna remove Daniel from the stage?
No, not
he is
strict.
well known on. Listen, he is well known by many people that he does this stuff that I sent to you about in the text message. Okay, it's well documented. He has a broad reputation.
Hey, Grim Skeptic, good to see you.
For doing what I posted in the text message. Okay.
This is terrific stuff from Darth. Always, he has this real problem understanding that. For him, I don't think that somebody could come along and say something about somebody that he knows or likes or is acquainted with or otherwise familiar with and just say, hey, so-and-so over there, you were just having a conversation with them like maybe a half an hour ago. Well, that person did A, B, and C or said X, Y, and Z about this thing, this horrible thing. And so I'm telling you as a fellow Christian, you need to just block that person. Right. I mean, most people are going to be like, and I think Darth would too, if somebody was like leaning into him, like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know that they've actually said those things. So I just know that you're telling me that those things happen. But Darth seems to think that if he shows up and he tells somebody, hey, here's a problem with this Daniel Nero guy, or here's a problem with Tom Rabbit or Godless Girl, or, you name it, their problem is that they've doxed me, and that they stalk me, and that they slander me and defame, all this kind of stuff. And you need to distance yourselves from them. You should, if you offer them an opportunity to talk on one of your in your room or whatever, then you're complicit. You're complicit with all the, and this is more or less what he does. That's a really interesting bar. And when he did this to J Robin, a user who's since left this nightmare world, and by nightmare world I mean the clubhouse debate thing, especially amongst the Christian debate bro types. He took issue with Darth saying this, like, I have your allegation that this person did this or has said this. I understand that you don't get along with them. That doesn't have anything to do with me. And Darth basically insisted, not explicitly, but nearly, that, oh yeah, it is your business. If you're going to be friends with me, you're not going to be friends with that guy. I mean, he didn't put it quite that kindergarten playground-esque, but that's basically what this is coming down to. And this is a weird way of exerting control amongst otherwise, in adult conversations, attempting to pull this, and then somehow kind of appeal to this notion that this is a shared notion amongst Christians, this sort of irrational, like, look, I'm telling you that person is persona non grata, or should be, from everybody here. Trust me on this. You don't need to see receipts. Just trust me. I know that person's no good. And if you continue to associate with them, I will then know that you are no good. You're on notice. Right? I mean, nope. I mean, I don't know who died and made Darth Dawkins the clubhouse hall monitor, but apparently he seems to think he's in charge.
Yeah. Now, Matt, you're showing your true colors. That is not a she. That is somebody who is lying and pretending to be a female, and you are capitulating to this person's delusion. Okay, which is not biblical.
But Darth.
So he's already leaning into it. So this is the problem, right? His idea is that when Matt was having a conversation with Brenda, who is a trans woman and prefers the pronouns she, her, Matt used those pronouns. And as far as Darth is concerned, Matt Adams is feeding into Brenda's quote unquote delusion, which is a hell of a thing. Now, a little bit earlier on, and I think he gets into this a little bit earlier. John Lee had already kind of indicated it. He's like, well, what about this notion of like calling? He's like, I don't believe that these people are atheists. I think that they're theists, but they call themselves atheists. And I'm willing to say I'm willing to agree with them that that's what they label themselves. So I'll describe them as that, even though John Lee, for, reasons, thinks that atheism is not a possible stance. Yeah, keep that in mind as this goes forward.
Don't you think atheists are theists pretending to be someone who doesn't know God?
That's a good point,
an
John.
Apples and orange comparison. No, it's not a good.
Yeah, it is.
An atheist is a label.
Good point, Darth.
Is a label who's somebody who makes that.
Sorry, Darth. It's a good point. Now, I said if you want to talk about me and James and settle that issue, we can. You're not going to keep coming up here and running your mouth and just taking over the stage. If you want to do that, go back to Discord, because
Matt Adams, you take James's tired's name out your mouth. Hello, Maya. Good evening. Thanks for joining.
Darth, I'm perfectly fine with you staying on Discord.
Wow, man.
Wow.
John, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of people like that, and I'm tired of theists coming in, like I said earlier, just Jacob guy.
Yeah, it bothered me too, Babyfoot, a little bit, because I don't follow John Lee that closely, but he's come up. I mean, I'm well acquainted with some of his shenanigans over in Clubhouse. And he actually kind of made a good point. Like, well, why not? We entertain this. And if you have a Christian position or kind of a theological position that atheism isn't really a real position, but you're entertaining the notion, then you're kind of engaging in that. And the interesting thing is, I don't know, Darth doesn't really actually, well, he does later on. That this is going to get into that, I think, a little bit, but I don't think he really addresses that. And I seem to remember kind of early on when, earlier clips from years and years ago when Darth was kind of dipping his toes in the YouTube pool with the Google Hangouts and stuff like that. I think he may have played with that aspects of that argument anyway. I mean, actually, it's kind of implied in his thing as it is with the precept that you can't really be. You couldn't really be an atheist anyway. You need God. You're borrowing from that worldview anyway, so you basically are a theist. And I don't know if John's using that angle to get there, but it's been used before. And I mean, if you look up, I mean, I don't know how many are left, but there used to be a lot of. For a while, there was a rash of these arguments coming from kind of wannabe Christian apologist YouTubers that, well, atheists don't actually exist. It's not a real thing. Everybody believes in God. You have to believe in God. There's no choice. It was kind of an interesting move. Like, it's inescapable, but you could say the same thing if you were Muslim and then watch the Christians get, a little uncomfortable and just kind of shake their heads. It's not Allah. It's Jesus, not Allah. Points are the same. Logic still the same.
Come in, we can't really make arguments for God or A game or any of these people, and they say this stuff, and then you and I or Johnny or somebody on stage, then they want to tell us how to run the stage and what we're supposed to say. No, it's not biblical. It's not biblical to go off on people and yell at them all the time, neither, Darth. And
it's not.
You do it constantly.
Yeah, he's gone. He just sent me a.
Do me a favor and tell him to block me.
Yeah.
But he got so triggered because he said she regarding Brenda. I mean, my goodness. I was just like.
Well, look, I was going to just kind of sit here on stage and not really say anything to Darth. And then whenever I just happened to mention, I was wanting to talk about the conversation I had with Brenda last night, where I thought Brenda was at, where I kind of put Brenda into a corner. And I just.
Nobody puts Brenda in a corner.
Just mentioned she, and he just went off. And I mean, I'm just not going to tolerate someone doing that. And, especially after the history that we've had, like he thinks he can come up and lecture me again after that. I mean, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, John Rapp. Matt has been a bit up and down with Ding Dong. He kowtowed before and may do again. Yeah, yeah, I've kind of seen that up and down. But I mean, this sounds like I got him good and ticked. And this is a thread that kind of runs through a lot of Christians. There are very few Christians that like to be told what to do, which is kind of a little bit odd. Viva Hernando, thank you very much for that super chat. That was the G-Man argument that atheists don't really exist circa 2015, 2016. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah. I forget G-Man was doing that quite a bit. Yeah. And that sounds right. Yeah. I don't know that Darth really glommed onto it too, but, yeah, I do remember G-Man doing it. And there were a couple others that were doing that as well. But thank you again for that super chat. Yeah, according to Darth, atheists cannot exist. Everyone knows God. Darth is on that Romans life. Yeah.
And I can't believe he thought I guess he thought that I would just, oh yeah, you're right, Darth. Everything's good. You're right. No, we're not going to do that. If he comes back on the stage I'm on, and look, I'll be neutral. If he's on a stage, I won't say anything. But if he comes on a stage and starts addressing me like that, then we're going to have a discussion. And I don't think he wants to have the discussion, or else I think he would have come up here and tried to have it. And that's just kind of what I believe. I think he just wants to lecture and try to run over me. And it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to put up.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Always a classic. So now Matt Adams is basically laid. And keep in mind that really, I mean, there's something else going on there. There's been plenty of back and forths and ups and downs between Darth and Matt Adams. So it's a little tender. But yeah, he's put it out there. And now Darth is really going to go off on this. And he really does. Like, his line in the sand is, if you're a Christian and you use someone's preferred pronouns, you're just, I don't know. I guess you're giving up on any claims to be, you know, if you're a would-be warrior for Jesus, it's not going to look good for you if you're respectful and trying to use the language of the day to engage with people.
Is Brenda a female, John?
I also want to put out a little trigger, maybe not a trigger warning. At this point, I think everything that Darth says is kind of triggering, but a little bit of a trigger warning. So a lot of the shit that comes out of his face on this is basically just, I mean, it's remarkably ignorant. And I was a little surprised when I first listened to this, how backward this is. Like, I mean, it's almost, I don't want to use the cliche. It's almost so wrong. It's, not, or whatever, however that phrase works. It's just, I don't know how he got through the last 20 years. And you'll see what I mean when he gets to making a point. It's not just the pronouns he's still sore about.
No, she's, well, I mean, I use the word she, but Brenda's not a female. But
no,
neither do I think that atheists are. Neither do I think that atheists are atheists.
Listen,
Yeah, when he starts doing that with the high pitch, it's definitely triggering for me. And yeah, Maya, so you're saying Darth raised the cringe bar? Oh yeah. Yeah, for me, this definitely did it.
Me a rebuttal to a counter rebuttal to my rebuttal to you. This is a false comparison.
It's not. I mean, I hate to defend John's point, but it really isn't. If you're talking about what somebody is asserting in terms of like their identity, they say that they're an atheist, and you think theologically that that's not the case, or your theological point is that epistemologically it's impossible for you to be an atheist, but you go ahead and entertain the notion that this person is an atheist, so you're willing to use that, recognize that that's how they identify. All right. How is that any different? But Darth doesn't actually make a good point here coming up. He wants to say that these are somehow totally different, and they are, because I don't think that that's actually the case. Somebody being in an atheist category and somebody being trans are very different things in terms of, it's a little bit like saying, it'd be like trying to equate sexual orientation with career aspirations, and that's not exactly the case. And by that I mean it would be like somebody saying, oh well, if you say that you desire a same-sex couple, that's like saying you want to be an airline pilot, or you want to join the Marine Corps, or you want to become a PhD, and that's not how it is. You are oriented that way. It's not what you aspire to do. And in some cases, atheism is a little bit of a weird tack to take, because a lot of it is not under your direct control. I don't believe that people control that position. A lot of that's based on, that kind of doxastic involuntarism kind of thing. So obviously there's differences there, but the point stands from John Lee that for these guys, for whatever childish point that Darth is attempting to make, like, hey, in the past, Christians have made this childish point. This isn't John's take, because John makes he's taking the same approach that G-Man did, and these other kind of cringy apologists, that there's no such thing as atheists, right? If you take presuppositionalism to heart. So that should really be Darth's stance too. He should kind of have the same reaction to them acknowledging the self-identification of so-called atheists in these rooms. And he doesn't draw the line there. And that is a little odd.
You know what? At least you have the balls to come into the room. Unlike those feckless little cowards. They kicked me from the room. John.
See, that's the sin. It's one thing to do this, to have a respectful conversation with somebody and commit some kind of weird social faux pas that offends Darth's, paleo-conservative social, culture warrior sensibilities, but you kick him. Like, he could have forgiven you for the first line, if you came begging and scraping, but kick him, and it's going to be a lot harder to get back in those graces.
What do these people have to do? You see, you're part of the problem too, okay? Because you want to be bedfellows with the worst of the worst of the worst on Clubhouse. What do these people have to do in order for you to say no more? You're not welcome on my stage. What do these people have to do, John?
This again makes no sense. These guys are not, they're hosting clubhouse rooms. They're not producers of TV shows. Nothing about this is monetized. This is a strange projection from Darth and like a delusion of grandeur that he thinks actually applies to everyone else. And like, well, if you host a clubhouse room with half a dozen people in it, you have to understand that you're in a position of power and influence. And you need to be responsible about the people that are on there. They're random rooms where people show up and shoot the shit. That's what they're for. That's the whole point of Clubhouse. Now, if you have somebody that shows up and starts violating terms of service, like dropping racial epithets or these kinds of things, well, then you have a problem. But for the most part, just because you're in a room with somebody or even hosting a room and people come in that you disagree with 98% of the time, if they're capable of kind of like at least engaging in a group conversation, there really isn't anything necessarily wrong there. This guilt by association nonsense that Darth keeps wanting to tar these guys with is tiring because he's engaged in this. And it's one thing if he has his own room, he'll bring somebody in to beat up on him and then let them go. So it's okay when Darth does it because Darth's a pro in his mind. Oh, I can bring that person in there that I've vilified and I've called out for being a stalker and an evil degenerate, but I'll bring them in for 5 minutes to embarrass them in front of my audience, and then I'll kick them again. And somehow he's not contradicting himself. Somehow he's not a hypocrite. It's really mind-boggling. But he'll then turn around and do something even worse. After he's kicked and banned and muted so many people that he can't get people to show up for the shows he hosts, he starts sneaking around and prowling into other people's rooms, and he'll pop into some of these rooms, very similar to the ones that John Lee regularly hangs out with, and some of those people will be there. Now, he's popped in there to looking for what? I mean, it's Darth Dawkins, so he's looking for attention and he's looking to pick a fight. Those are the two main things, not necessarily in that order, but they both kind of fulfill each other. And when he goes into those rooms, some of those people that he's condemning John Lee and Matt Adams for associating with are in fact there. And Darth goes into a room where he has no power to do anything with. Now he'll go in there and maybe he will raise hell, but everybody expects him to go meta. So for Darth, it's just what they expect. He'll go in there and immediately start just moaning and bitching about this person treats me bad and that person treats me bad. Are you going to do something about that person? You going to do something about that person? Immediately trying to control the room because that's his game. So yeah, he doesn't have a good good footing here. This is really shaky ground, and it's amazing to me that no one can actually lay this case out to him long enough for him to pay attention to it. He just lacks too much. Well, he lacks patience and he lacks self-awareness, and he doesn't have the patience to listen to someone long to maybe gain a little bit more self-awareness.
Tell me. Well, I mean, I have my personal issues with Daniel Nero, Darth. He has been doxing me like you wouldn't believe. He's going into all sorts of things, but even still, I don't mind being on the same stage with them in a sense.
Then you have no character.
Well, now, okay, why? John Lay is like, oh well, it doesn't bother me essentially to be on in the same clubhouse stage, and Darth conflict. Well, then you have no character. So you have to pick a fight with everybody.
Okay, then you're an attention whore too.
That doesn't follow. It doesn't follow that just because they're in a room engaging in a conversation, that because one person's there that they don't agree with, and maybe has done things to other people that they definitely don't agree with, that they need to make it their case to call that this. And this is the thing. This isn't that like. I don't think Darth would be satisfied with John Lee saying, okay, here's the thing. I'm on here on the stage with Bill Jones. Bill Jones has a reputation of harassing Christians I know on Clubhouse. One of them is Darth Dawkins. I just want to state for the record, I object to his behavior, and state that and just put that in as a disclaimer. Does anyone in the live chat or anyone who watches this later think that would satisfy Darth? No. Apparently what you would have to do is when that person shows up, you now need to devote all of your energy to castigating whoever controls that room until they remove that person. You have to make it your goal to get them out of there. And if they don't, you need to leave. Otherwise, you don't have any character as far as Darth's concerned. So, your standards and your plans and your code of ethics or any of that other kind of stuff, be damned, you need to do as Darth would do. even if it doesn't make sense, apparently.
Right. The bottom line is, when we call somebody an atheist, we're not legitimizing their belief claim. When you call somebody a she, whether one realizes it or not, you are legitimizing that pronoun.
No, you're respecting the person who would like you to refer to them with that pronoun. The pronoun is already legitimate. It just is, but he's going to get the pronoun wrong anyway. Welcome, Pat. Yeah, doesn't he know that without God to ground all things and concepts upon, how do you have any truth about anything? I don't. I'll just admit that right there, and then ask you, Pat. I'll just pull a Pine Creek on you. Would you like to talk about Jesus, Pat? I'm wrong about everything. Let's talk about Jesus. Yeah, Pat comes in using Dr. Josh's troll script. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, good to see you, Pat. And Mark Reed. Good to see you too, Mark. And Nick, hello. All right, let's get this back.
It's referring to them as a female. Okay? When they call themselves she, that's a fraud. Is it?
She would refer to a woman, not necessarily a female. This is entirely like the bones of his argument, and he's already getting this goofed up.
Not. It's a fraud. It's not merely an atheist. When we talk about an atheist, we're giving a label for shorthand to refer to what they claim. Now, if you want to refer to Brenda as a transvestite, fine. Right? That's what this.
Brenda is not a transvestite. He can't even get this right. This is just insane. Rage, good to see you. I was watching your one on Kent Hovind earlier. That was a good video. Jefferson doesn't buy subs; he buys viewers. Like, holy shit, your viewer to sub ratio is insane. Yeah, I don't understand why. And this is kind of a light night. I mean, I think we're at like 70. I think we hit 70, but yeah, I don't know why people tune in to watch me live when I'm covering. I credit all credit goes to Darth. It's all for Darth's cringiness. I'm just here pointing and laughing at his rhetorical foibles. But yeah, good to see you. So getting back to this, Darth is like saying, Brenda is a transvestite. No, Brenda is not a transvestite. Brenda is a trans woman. And the reason that the pronouns she and her are appropriate because Brenda identifies as a woman. It doesn't matter that Brenda was not, in fact, born female. She and her are not scientific designations for females. We often do use them even when we're referring to female animals and things like that, but that's not the point of gendered language. And Darth seems to think like, well, that's just not going to work for him. If it's I guess he's one of these guys like, well, if it's, I kind of wonder what he would do in the case if you're talking to somebody who is a hermaphrodite. I mean, what do you do there? I guess he'd just say, well, you're trying to argue the exception to the rule, and so I won't engage. Let's see. Pat says the really problematic thing is that people like Didi can't or won't make distinctions between various definitions and nuance used by biologists, anthropologists, sociologists, and psychologists. Yeah, then that's an important point to make as well. This notion of he and she in just sort of common parlance is, and this is the thing that Darth can't really wrap his mind around. This is already getting away from him. It's not a problem that I think that many people have. It's just a kind of a problem that some of these reactionaries have because they feel like that if they I don't know. I think from their perspective, they feel if this kind of language flexibility is allowed, it concedes something to a postmodern sensibility that they've been trying to kick against because they think that, well, postmodernism is essentially a surrender of objective morality. It's a surrender of what defines Western culture and Judeo-Christian values. And it's essentially like it's just a rapid decline after that into nihilism and chaos. If you listen to these guys, it really does sound like that's what they believe. And given the stuff that I'm sure that Darth is normally, hoovering up when he's not running his mouth on Clubhouse or, wherever he's at, yelling at people, is probably like Bible pundit or whatever, some kind of radical right-wing Christian fundamentalist political, conflating everything. I don't know if he's like Q or anything like that, but he's definitely not... He's not getting his news from calm sources. I wouldn't even say balanced. It wouldn't even matter if they were balanced. It would be nice if he was getting some of his information from somebody like, say, if it was just Fox News, because that's more accurate than like Pajamas Media or whatever that place is called, or Little Green Footballs or some of those other crazy ones. Yep, take care, Rage. Good seeing you here. Thanks for stopping by. Take it easy.
This person is.
You mean transgender, not trans.
Well, that's a fraudulent claim. There's no
Okay, here he goes.
such thing as transgender.
There's no such thing as transgender. John Lee, of all people, corrects him on this. No, that's incorrect. Brenda is not a transvestite. Brenda is transgender. Darth's reaction, there's no such thing. Transgender's made up. Okay. Nick writes, Jeff, they think postmodernism leads to ontological relativism. That really is, that reality is whatever a person thinks it is, and there's no objective state of affairs. Yeah. Oh, don't use state of affairs. There's a video dedicated to Jay right now from, who did it? Was it Brojo? I think Brojo did it. So check it out. I don't know if it's called State of Affairs, but yeah, no, I really do think that's where they're getting this from, and the idea that this pronoun, this war against the usage of pronouns in this way, is really weird. Stephen Fry, who is not somebody that's going to influence or convince Darth of anything anytime soon, did this once. He actually talked about how when he was younger, he used to be quite a grammar. He was very strict and rigid about grammar. He was something like a grammar Nazi, and he believed that language had to work particular ways. And as he got older and kind of developed a better appreciation for how language evolves, he realized, well, language evolves. It's dynamic, and it's supposed to be, and it's based on common usage, and it's based on applying it in these different ways. It grows. And sometimes it grows in ways that force us to adapt kind of around it. And sometimes they're not always in ways that we're totally comfortable with. We might disagree with common usage of words, but that doesn't mean, and people will have complaints about it from time to time. A great example would be the usage of the word woke, right? It came out of the Black American community. It's been co-opted. It's kind of become popularized, but it's mostly been co-opted to mean, well, when you hear it from people who are like conservative, they'll say woke, the woke mob and the woke people, and woke doesn't really have any meaning anymore. The woke is just the people who are sort of enemies of their concept of civilization. And that wasn't what the word meant anymore. But you can try to fight and try to claw the original meaning of the word woke back. But unfortunately, because it exists and it's used over there in that audience amongst them, they've kind of turned it into a dog whistle for themselves. So now you have a word with very different meanings. Anyway, that's a random tangent. So
It doesn't
in
exist.
In any case,
John,
I think if I were to ask Matt,
transgender does exist. So Darth's just wrong here. I mean,
John, is the term?
You think Brenda's?
John, is the term transgender true? Can you
yes.
Can you transgender?
Yes, you can.
So is Brenda a he or a she, John?
Brenda is a she.
When the Bible says he made the male or female.
But see, when the Bible says it's male and female, what are you supposed to do, John? According to the Bible, well, it's man and woman. It's gender, not sex. So Darth is already conflating things and using the Bible to excuse his conflation.
Is he a he or a she?
And yeah, I totally agree, Nick. Woke is a modern stand-in by certain peoples for slurs they can't say on television. Exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
I understand Brenda to be a male. If you're gonna ask,
okay. So
but is Brenda a man?
Referring to him as a she is identifying him as a female.
No. Referring to Brenda as a she identifies Brenda as a woman.
Well, if I were to ask Matt, you think Brenda's a male or female? I think he would say male.
That's besides the point.
No, it's not.
That's not even under question.
So at this point, I mean, it's weird. John's not really even doing anything here, and Darth is kind of losing to him in this discussion. It's like, I mean, he'd be losing this discussion if he was having it with himself in front of his bathroom mirror. But
the question is, look, John, you're old. How old are you, John?
I'm 54.
Okay, so you're a little bit younger than I. You're old enough to remember.
This is great.
The 70s. Okay.
Sure.
Where they co-opted the word gay as a propaganda term, because they wanted to evade the moral implications of the term homosexuality. It was a strategic use, a bastardization of words and terms, okay, in order to pursue a radical social agenda.
No, it was not. Now, I'm not that great. Before I launch into this little tangent here, I'm going to read this. So Didi doesn't understand that propositions are truth bearers and individual words are not. But hey, only he has the complete comprehensive worldview. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get into that with him, and actually, maybe you have, Nick, back in the past. I think maybe you have tried to get him into a conversation very close to that, and I can't imagine that he would allow it to go very far. It's anybody's guess, Jack Burton. Did mommy hug him too much or not enough? I really don't know. It's really difficult to figure. So his claim is that John, being in his mid 50s, early to mid 50s, should remember the 70s, kind of, and when, even though that John would have been too young to really kind of remember this in the 70s. Darth says all of a sudden that the homosexual community co-opted the word gay and they bastardized the word because they were afraid of using the term homosexual. And so they stole this word from us and then bastardized it and then used this to further their insidious agenda, their radical social agenda, I think is how he put it. No. My limited understanding about this particular issue is that there's not a real clear history as to when that term gay started being used as a slang for same-sex attraction. But by most accounts that I've heard, the idea is that it began with men seeking men, and they would refer to themselves as gay, and it was a code for being attracted to other men and seeking other men in a way that protected them. If you lived in a day and age where declaring yourself homosexual would get you locked up, you have to be careful. And Darth seems to act like, oh, well, they just snuck around on this. Well, you have to sneak around if there's laws that are going to get you, if not killed, very possibly chemically tortured, castrated. Because you sought out consensual relations with other same-sex individuals. So yeah, there's going to be coded language. There's going to be ways of dealing with this in nuance and layering this to hide in plain sight as much as possible. And then the term started to become more popularized as a way of kind of accepting, as a way of sort of saying homosexual without having to I don't know, scare the straights, so to speak. And the interesting thing is that I didn't know this until I looked into it. And this was a couple of years ago, that the idea of gay, I think, used to be, as it developed as slang over the decades, was really a way of identifying men attracted to men. It really wasn't one that you would use on lesbians. And then it kind of became a catch-all term for anyone attracted to members of the same sex. And so even amongst its community, I think it's evolved as well. It hasn't stayed static, it's dynamic. And he's just trying to say, no, this was part of their way of stealing a word from the English language, twisting it to their nefarious purposes, and then employing it to basically use this as a sugar pill to ram in it's the sugar coating around the poison pill, I should say, to get their nasty, evil social agenda pushed through, and everybody's going to accept homosexuality. Nope, that's not how it works. That's completely wrong. That is not how that word came to be. I don't know if if you listen to him, it sounds like there was an evil cabal of people at some point in the 70s, all gay, and they all sat around and said, this is the word we're going to pick to identify us, and then we're just going to start using this. Now, there may have been concentrated efforts after this had become a thing over time to be like, you know what, we need to embrace this as a term, as a way of building solidarity amongst ourselves. I think that could have happened, and maybe it did. I'm not sure. But Darth's conspiracy theory about how the gays took "gay" at the word away from from society is just bonkers. I heard this stuff back when I was a kid. I remember hearing this stuff back in the 80s, this kind of bullshit and nonsense. So Darth's Christianity and his conservative values are still firmly tucked into like 1986 Reagan era culture war nonsense.
Do you agree with that?
I'm familiar with Christopher Street parade, DSM-3. Right. I'm aware of those things.
Okay, so when we use the words like "gay," we're capitulating to their propaganda terms, just like.
No, you're not. You're not capitulating to. I don't know if Nick is correcting me or not, but is it "gay" was a code word that the gay community used to covertly communicate with one another? Yeah, and we outed that code, and we outed that code word, kind of like "friend of Dorothy." Yeah, and I always thought the "friend of Dorothy" thing wasn't really I thought that was more of a pejorative. But that's probably because the first time I ever heard the term, it was being used in the pejorative. But raised in the 80s. Hogtie, French English speaker here. In all Latin Romance languages, he and she refer to gender, masculine, feminine, not sex, male, female. Dee can't English properly. Also, the code "friend of Dorothy" being used by the gay community to identify one another led to the USA looking for Dorothy and wasting millions of dollars in the process. That's hilarious. Oh man, it was somebody like Darth Dawkins, I think, in charge of that. I could see him really embracing that kind of mission.
Like the word homophobia. Look, it is unconscionable for any Christian to refer to a male as a she.
Why? I don't understand why. Why is it unconscionable for a Christian to use those pronouns? This makes no sense. If there is something about this that's connected somehow, like I don't know if he thinks that you'd be lying or whatever. This makes no sense to me. I can't think of anything in the Bible that would make using the preferred pronouns of any individual a sin for the Christian being asked to do it. And now Darth's saying it's unconscionable. Like you should not want to do that. Okay, I don't know why it would matter what you wanted. It's not about what you want. It's about what they're asking you to do. So if you're interested in engaging in a conversation and keeping those lines of communication open, you might want to meet them at least part of the way, and part of that is respecting the pronouns. This doesn't seem complicated to me, and I'm not even that savvy about these particular issues. So but Darth seems to have a real problem with this. But then again, he's still holding a grudge from when when the LGBTQ community stole "gay," the word.
There's no transgenderism doesn't exist. Okay?
But then neither does atheism. That's the only reason why.
No.
So John returns to that. Well, then neither does atheism. Here we go.
No, John. This is an apples and orange comparison.
No, it's
apples
not.
and oranges.
No, it really isn't. For the ways that Darth is entertaining this kind of imagined idea, as far as he's concerned, transgenderism is not real. It is simply a delusion. That's what he thinks, and that's what he's stating here. And he also believes that atheism is not real. It is a delusion. And now he's saying they're different. So I'm kind of curious, given that he's provided this pushback to John, if they're not equivalent, and we know that he thinks that, quote, transgenderism in his mind is not real, big quotes, and bigger quotes, delusional, exclamation point. What is it about atheism that's somehow more relevant?
Atheism is a term that refers to what they are proclaiming. Okay? When we call themselves an atheist, we are not capitulating, okay, to their self-identity that there is no God. It's an apples and orange comparison. Okay.
Well, I mean, I've had rooms where the title would be something like "Atheists and Ex-Christians Do Not Exist" or something like that. I could have added something like,
John,
well
really, John, let's be honest here.
Jesus.
This is a bogus comparison that you're making between atheism and calling somebody a she.
Whoa. That's not the comparison. The comparison is if you believe that atheism is a delusion and it's not real, and maybe it shouldn't be, and you think that transgenderism is delusional and not real and it should not be tolerated and should not be entertained. The issue at hand is why, if atheism is the same, meets these same requirements, why is it being entertained for the purposes of an argument and a discussion, and transgenderism isn't? Why do you draw the line between the two?
And Matt is capitulating to the social war that is going on with a war of words. Do you agree that there's a war of words, John?
I do agree.
Good.
Of course. Yeah, John Lee is trying to have a war of words, I think, almost every day on Clubhouse. By the way, see you later, Maynard, if you are taking off. It was nice of you to be here. Marty Camejo, good to see you too. Nice to have you on here. And Ask Emily of God, also good to see you too. And hello, Lucky Wolfen.
Do you agree that they adopt certain phraseology, nomenclature that is inconsistent with the biblical worldview? Yeah. So
yeah, me personally,
that is inconsistent with the biblical worldview. That could be almost anybody, and Darth could be talking about a lot of other Christians. Then there are quite a few Christians in the UCC congregations that are in open support of the LGBTQ community. So I guess that they've just capitulated to this, so they're all phony.
Say homosexual every time rather than gay.
Okay, that's fine. Now, if you said gay, I wouldn't give you a hard time, because it's so replete now, and it's ubiquitous. It's a lost cause. But you see, Matt Adams is capitulating, right? And you know what?
Really?
Did you know
he's capitulating? Capitulating to what, and in what way? He thinks that this is a war of words, and you're capitulating. You're giving. Matt Adams is ceding too much ground. To what effect? What on earth does this do? It doesn't do you any good if you're going to have a conversation. This is why Darth is really bad at everything. If he's trying to be an apologist and you want to actually do something like communicate this, keep in mind here, and this isn't something that I think somebody ought to make a t-shirt about this. Like, remember, Darth Dawkins is concerned for you. Keep that in mind. No matter how many times he's yelled at people and scorned people and kicked people and banned people, at the end of the day, if he gets called out for being too abusive or too noisy or too hostile or too sweary, etc., he will always come back to the justification that he has to tell you about the God that loves you and died for you. And you have to do what that loving and saving God says, and you have to acknowledge that he did that. Otherwise, it's going to get you. I'm not really straying too far from his actual concentrated script. He's more or less said this. And he has used the words, my God is going to get you, something to that effect, or God is going to get you. So he believes in this wrathy, vengeful, if you're not marked with the blood of the Christ salvation, God's going to punch your ticket. Cool. He's already given into a type of theology that is awful. It appeals to a sense of his desire to see people punished. But he'll come out and try to defend himself. No, I'm really concerned about you. Don't you realize that your eternal soul is destined for hell? I'm just trying to save you, you effing idiot, and then he'll just start foaming at the mouth and shrieking all over the place again. He's been doing that, I think, a little bit more because I don't think his mom's around anymore to kind of keep him calm and, maybe push a bowl of Chef Boyardee in front of him so he can, get his blood sugar right. But Yeah, to keep that in mind in terms of communication. Nothing about what he does with anyone, and these are conversations with Christians, lines up with what he ultimately ends up defending himself with. I'm here to declare the gospel of Christ and warn people and tell them that they need to repent and come to Jesus because I'm concerned about their immortal soul, the eternal destination of that immortal soul. But that's not what this sounds like. Now he's bitching about pronouns. Like, it's important to have a mission statement, not necessarily in life, but in certain aspects of what you do. And maybe 10 years ago, Darth should have kind of sat down and thought, like, what's my mission statement for doing this kind of stuff online? Because really all I see is just a lot of weird internalized id. His passions get worked up. He targets people that he thinks are, somehow philosophically or culturally or socially different than him, and he just lashes out.
Notice immediately when I called him into question, he kicked me off a stage because he's really sore because I have the nerve to criticize him that he sucks up to the atheists.
I think he was upset because he thought you were trying to tell him what to do. Maybe that's what it was about.
I was telling him what to do, right?
I understand.
Just like other Christians criticize me and they're telling me what to do.
No, oftentimes they're telling you what not to do, Darth. I mean, let's be fair. I mean, if you're watching this, Darth, just keep that in mind. Most people aren't giving you solutions or alternative things that you could do. Most of them are saying, please, for the love of Jesus, stop doing what you're doing or stop saying what you've been saying. Christopher Mowdy, good to see you. God is definitely going to get you at Jefferson. Well, I mean, which God? Some gods I might, now if it's a goddess, let her get me, but that's the way I swing. Now, for others, it could be something different. Unless it's like a Medusa type or something like that. That's not my kink.
Right? When Matt or Johnny criticize me, they are in a sense telling me what to do, right?
Yeah, I just don't think it was a case of...
No, again, they're often telling you what not to do. Like, especially if somebody gets to the point where they're literally telling Darth to shut up. Like, aren't you telling me what to do? I guess so, in a negative way. I want you to not talk. So yeah, I guess if you took that the opposite way, I'd like you to be quiet. So work on being silent. That's what I want you to do.
Him trying to say, I want to be adamant to recognize this label, or I don't think it was about that.
No, he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and that's why he kicked me off stage, right? And the point is
he got caught in the cookie jar. This is great. Yeah, thanks, Christopher. Witch God, haha. Yeah, I know. It's a weak defense, but you know what I mean. You know. But the one ultimate who is the source of all existence is personally going to smite me. I think that's worth talking about with some of these guys, like Darth, that believes that God is like the ultimate traffic cop, right? But he's also the ultimate grounding for all of reality upon which all things derive and depend. And he's going to cite you for being naughty. Like, why would it, like, I really have a hard time like holding the two of those. Like, so this God is responsible for the creation of absolutely everything, and most of these things, I mean, ultimately are beyond my comprehension and my total ability to understand anything and everything, because we can't understand everything. And at the same time, he's looking to assign me demerits for how I go about living my day-to-day life. So this thing is super wise, all powerful, and petty as fuck. It's just a weird combo.
Is that you're a part of this too, but they're even worse. They are part of the feckless Christians that want to be bedfellows with the worst of the worst. Okay.
So when Darth Dawkins goes into rooms that he's not a mod for, and he ends up with some of these quote unquote feckless Christians, that means by extension, Darth Dawkins is now one of the worst of the worst. I really don't think he understands the standard that he's establishing here. Trying to say, like, if you spend any amount of time in a clubhouse room with Tom Rabbit or Godless Girl or T-Jump or Jack Angstrike or Haiti, who's another one I think that he currently hates. If you spend any time with these people, then you are also one of the worst of the worst. But Darth still occasionally will end up in discussions with these people and pick fights with them. Now, if he's controlling the room when they show up, he'll kick them out. Like, no, they're trolls. I don't want to talk with them. Or if he's feeling feisty, he'll bring them in. Like I said, bring them in and toy with them, like a cat with with a toy that it was bored with, but now it's trying to revisit. And then 5-10 minutes into that, kick them, and then just remind people, yeah, these people are degenerates and liars and drunks and dunces and delinquents, et cetera, et cetera. The exact same pattern goes through. So you're watching this guy go through a weird psychological process of feeding all of the worst aspects of himself in front of an audience. And he lacks so much self-awareness at this point that he's telling these guys, like, well, if you're associated with these people in any way, you're just the worst of the worst. What do you mean they're the worst of the worst? Those are the people you absolutely thrive on, Darth. You need to talk to the worst of the worst to illustrate your point that these people, like me, are scum and degenerate and reprobate and possibly reprobate. Let's be careful there. And in desperate need of Jesus. We need that salvation, that regeneration of the Holy Spirit. You need to be talking to the worst of the worst, Darth. That's the whole effing point. Have you read the instruction manual? I mean, it's not, but you guys act like the Bible is an instruction manual. You should be taking that seriously.
They have people that they know engage in stalking, harassing, and doxing, and then they let them up on stage. Daniel Nero is one of the worst.
He's one of the worst. Can you believe that, people? Simus, thank you very much. And great to have you here, my friend. Good to see you. And John, thanks for showing up. Good to see you. Hope everything's going good in your part of the world. And I think somebody else had showed up. Oh, yeah. Shatterhouse. Good to see you, too. And Buster Jangle. Also good to see you. If I miss anybody, I do apologize, but I'm trying to catch everybody as you come in.
I wrote Johnny a lengthy note. He wrote back to me, "Oh, Darth, you're an angry man." Da, da, da.
Okay. So there's an example of it. Daniel is one of the worst. And he's telling John, oh, well, I told Johnny, and by Johnny, that's Johnny Hawes from the clubhouse rooms. He told Johnny that Daniel's bad. I wrote him a lengthy note. So, this is, again, like, so upon your word, we're just supposed to accept the fact, like, oh, well, Darth says you're bad. I can't talk to you anymore. Who does that?
Yeah, I said, nice deflection, Donnie. Nice deflection.
Well,
Johnny, not Donnie. I think he said Donnie. Weird.
I think he is the worst, Darth, if you want my opinion.
What?
Literally the worst. I voted him the biggest troll of 2022.
Oh, strong words coming from John Lane. Daniel is the biggest troll of 2022. In some atheist clubhouse rooms. Assembly, you've got 8:30 to yes, Darth hates Africans. Don't get me started on that. His views on syncopated rhythms are insane, and now you've got me spiraling on that. It just reminds me of that video with that other Christian. Oh my God, that was funny. But also to address Assembly of God's other point, and I'm mispronouncing your name. I know it's Assembly of God, but you had said something. Not all Christians are delusional. That's true. They're not. The interesting thing is that the ones that I think that are not delusional are the kinds of Christians that I think Darth would also condemn. The ones that, well, I mean, even in this case, I don't know that Matt Adams is all that reasonable about a lot of, well, it's some theological views. I know I've heard some really messy arguments from him. I don't know what his politics are, or, some of his views on other things. But this whole thing, this little thunderstorm in a bucket kind of thing for Darth is that Matt Adams is conceding ground and using these pronouns with Brenda. I mean, she identifies as a woman and she wants to be referred to as she, her, and Matt went along with it. Well, I mean, how much of a bigot do you have to be where you'll disown people for talking to others? That's pretty extreme. And then pat yourself on the back for how cool a Christian you are. It's a hell of a trick. Call me Mr. Ass. Well, we'll do.
On the entirety of Clubhouse. And he also doxes. So, I recognize it.
Yeah, but if you go up on stage and he's there too, then you're a part of the problem. Have you appealed to room moderators who allow him up on stage that they shouldn't do it?
I kind of look at it as if they're mods They could run their room as they.
Oh, so
they,
you
they
look
want.
the other way. Okay, yeah. So you're feckless.
Not that I just.
Notice what he. So it doesn't matter if there's two ways that you could go after John for this. If John is holding some kind of contradictory thing, if John is in the room and there's these other people in there, John's saying, well, if they're allowing them in the room, that's up to them. And I agree with him. It pains me, but I agree with him. Right? There's nothing you can do about it. I've been in rooms like that where they've had people in, and there's been like 2 or 3 cool people in there, and they brought in a few other people that, one or two people, and it's like, yeah, I've seen them go off on people in the past or something like that. They can get a little nuts or whatever, and but that happens to everybody. But it's not my room. I'm a guest. They brought me up. They wanted to hear from me or something like that, so I'm there. If Darth really wanted to hold John Lee accountable for any of this, he'd just say, well, if you had a room, would you have him up? Then he could hold his feet to the fire. This idea that this is where I don't understand this. Like, I guess if you're in their room or something like that, you have to take it upon yourself to be the guest that throws the entire room into disorder, demanding that the host kick somebody out of the party. That's just Darth is really embracing antisocial behavior. Inoculum, that's pretty big praise coming from the biggest troll on the internet. The John Lee saying someone is the biggest troll. Yeah. I don't know what Daniel did, but Darth is saving us, you guys, from Daniel. Yeah, this Daniel guy sounds like a real threat. John's the worst, so passive aggressive. He does get passive aggressive. And I have. Well, if anybody's interested, there's a lot of Tom Rabbit has a lot of content focused on John Lee. If you're interested in watching it, I struggle to get through a lot of them because I can't. After like the 4th or 5th attempt to try to like show him what he's doing wrong with an argument or something, I can't listen anymore.
Just kind of look at it like they have the prerogative to run the room, and I have the prerogative to either join or not join.
Right, and you have the prerogative to speak up when they tolerate the terms of service violations.
Okay, now he's bringing up another part. Terms of service, according to whom? Just because Darth has accused someone of violating the terms of service doesn't mean that they have, and doesn't mean that he has any proof of it. This is insane. What is John supposed to do in this point? What would anybody? So well, I heard from Darth Dawkins that Daniel once violated the terms of service, and if you have him on there, you might as well consider yourself a violator of terms of service too. And this is a hell of a thing coming from Darth Dawkins, who could not maintain a YouTube channel because his views are so fucking toxic that YouTube shelved him. Like, they binned his channel. Now, this is from what I understand. He would get in there and start talking about culture stuff, and I think it was usually about the gay issues, and that got him yanked. He kept violating terms of service. And I guess because he's not feckless, in his words, he has to go to these other places. He has to hang out on things like Xbox Live, Pal Talk, then Google Plus, then Discord, and now Clubhouse in order to get these opinions out. Because he can't really broadcast these things. He can't do it in a coded way. The only way I think he could do this is if he was on if he moved to certain parts of the Deep South and was on cable access, he could probably get away with this. But I don't think this guy has the discipline to even handle a ministry.
Okay. I just ask you, what do these people have to do for people like Johnny Hawes, Matt Adams, other Christian moderators, including yourself? What do these people have to do to where you're finally going to, have some intestinal fortitude, some character, and say, no, you are not welcome on the stage or even in my room?
That's a different standard, Darth Dawkins. That's a different standard. That's a very, you're not welcome on the stage or in my room. If it's John's channel, but that's not where Darth started with this. He's like, John's, you asked him for well, if you're going into one of these rooms because you're such a feckless attention whore, John Lee, you're in these rooms talking to these idiots. How come you don't stand up for your buddy Darth and let them know what a TOS violator such and such is? Well, I don't know that they're a TOS violator because you've just said that they are. I don't have any proof of that. And I'm just a guest in this room. So it's not really my place to start kicking people out. I haven't been given mods. I guess I'm supposed to make a stink now. And now Darth shifts it to, oh, well, I'm not going to have these people on my stage. Well, perfect. John Lee can do that. And then he's going to end up exactly where Darth is. Oh, isolated even from the people that want to watch him for the cringe factor. And Pat says, you heard it here, folks. Jefferson just said he thinks John Lee is too stupid to try to communicate with in a meaningful manner. That is not actually what I said, but I guess it is what I implied, so I accept that. But yes, no, I don't know what it is with John Lee, but those videos that Tom Rabbit has where they're talking to him, I don't know if it's because he's so desperate to preserve the appearance of looking right that he just comes across as a complete idiot, or he's so thick he just can't accept the multiple variations of explanations that people try to get to, like explain the connection that they're trying to get to. He doesn't. It just doesn't work. So, but yeah, Daniel has cornered Darth on his script a few times before. Okay, so I'm going to assume that maybe Daniel Nero. Pretty sure Daniel Nero is because I think I've seen videos with him before. Hell, I probably reviewed one where Daniel was in it. If it's been long enough, I may have forgotten. Darth is going more mask off these days. You're right, Alex. I think part of this is because I think he misses when he gets into these kinds of these things. I mean, this video is from 5 days ago. I don't know how old it was before that. My guess is Tom probably picked it up. It wasn't too old. But Darth really misses having these little soapboxes on places like Discord channels because he can surround himself with a really toxic crowd, and he's usually in some of those groups not the worst one. I mean, they get really fucking bad depending on the channel or server he's on. But I mean, even in those groups, what makes him bad is his diva-like behavior. He constantly clamors for more power and then doesn't know how to manage it. He's an idiot. And this has really kind of demonstrated that more to me because not only is he his take on same-sex issues, the usage of the word gay, transgender issues are so backward. I mean, they're not even wrong. They're just they're so completely fucking wrong-headed. It's like somebody a long time ago scared him with some crazy urban legends about homosexual people that he's now running around trying to feed all the, he's still running around with all these misguided notions. It's like listening to a 60-year-old man get really angry that you don't believe in Santa Claus, or you don't understand the threat that the boogeyman is. It's under his bed right now. Don't you understand?
Well, I think the times I speak up is maybe when I see a sort of a double standard to where they're expressing one thing and they're acting another way.
Look at Johnny Haas removed me from the stage again. They removed me from the stage a second time. You see, they're willing to draw a line in the sand for Darth Dawkins, but not for Daniel Nero. Not for
not for Daniel Nero. Well, they got to target everybody. They have to know exactly who's on Darth's troll list and get them all and never fail. Gotcha, Darth. Okay, yeah. Everybody needs to take out your garbage, do your chores, fight your battles for you. I mean, what a fucking wimp! What a complete. Why don't you go into those rooms and take them on, or have they blocked you? Maybe that's the problem. Maybe a lot of these people have just gotten sick of listening to him bitch about this, and they've blocked him. So when they're in those rooms, Darth can't get in. That could be it. That'd be a great explanation. Maybe that's the whole thing. You know what? He should just be honest with John Lee. Like, look, here's the thing. I want you to kick that guy out because I can't get in. All these assholes have me blocked. I want to get in there and talk, but the damn clubhouse block just keeps me out. Thank you, Dream Wisher. Nice to have you here. And thank you for that reminder, Devious Chris.
Jack Angstrike, not for Godless Girl, not for the worst people who engage in harassing, stalking, and doxing. Oh, well, you can come up on stage. James is tired. You can go on a campaign saying Darth Dawkins is a racist, okay?
You are a racist, Darth. I don't understand what, this is weird because as much as Darth will kind of really kind of embrace certain things in his culture war leanings, this seems kind of like the idea that well, it's slanderous to call me, Darth Dawkins, anonymous anonymous Discord and Clubhouse user, a bigot. How is it slander? We don't know who you are. You could be a Poe. This could all be put on. Maybe you're not actually a bigot, but you sure are talking like one a lot of the time.
Oh, come up on stage.
But I love this, like the fact that he's engaged in rhetoric where people have been like, yeah, you're kind of a racist. That's not a problem. The people that really need to be excoriated are the people that use the word racist to describe Darth. Those are the people that need to be checked. Those are the people that need to be removed. You need to get rid of that person. Okay, cool beans, Darth.
Stage. You can do that all you want. Darth Dawkins comes on the stage and calls into question that your moderation really isn't biblical. And what do? They kick me off stage. Oh, I crossed the line.
Your moderation isn't biblical. Okay. I don't know if anybody is my if they can. You know, if the AI art that was donated to me with these Darth Dawkins things wasn't so disturbing, I wouldn't mind an image. That image, one of these AI images of Darth that had been concocted, this stream and the previous one, on a T-shirt and underneath it that says "Your moderation is unbiblical" or "Your moderation is not biblical." Where on earth? I can't remember what part of Paul's letters go into how one should moderate a social media room and chat group in a biblical fashion. If anybody can find that, please let me know. I'm sure it was Paul that dealt with it, or maybe it's in, maybe you can't find it until, the book of James.
Line. So Daniel Nero gets to stay on stage, but Darth Dawkins gets kicked off of stage.
Aw, there it is. Daniel gets to stay, but but they take Darth's toys away and ask him to leave the room because he soiled himself again. Diapers full. Yeah, so they ask Stinky to get out and wash himself off, but Daniel gets to stick around. But everybody should know that Daniel once upon a time said something mean about my mom. Good Lord, this is such kindergarten playground bullshit. This guy really is just emotionally backward. He's an emotional cripple. Buster Jangle, Darth swallowed the conspiracy about the Pelosi attack like a gullible fool. Yeah, and even if your politics are not aligned that way, especially if you're not, I don't know, but Darth was practically celebrating the attack of an old guy. And I'm not a big Pelosi fan, but I knew nothing about her husband. The fact that he got attacked, I thought was kind of wild. And then when it happened, I remember hearing Darth coming out and reacting to it like it was like Christmas. We had Christmas announced, twice in 1 year. And then he goes on talking about like he's spinning up conspiracy theories. He was just so desperate to believe all of this crazy stuff about it. Like, oh, that guy was already there. Pelosi's husband picked him up as an escort, and then it turned violent. Like, just insane stuff. It's like they got video of the guy breaking through his door. Darth, just it's not looking good. I mean, I'm in my 40s now. 40 is hard. I hope my 60s are not like this, because this just seems like I don't want to be this guy. It just seems like a complete ass kicking.
I don't stalk and harass people. I don't dox.
You do harass people. Stalking, I don't know about. He has done that a little bit. He's actually been caught recorded asking people to go and keep an eye on people for him. He's done that with Tone Look, giving them marching orders to go check somebody else's thing out. He stalked me, the Tom Rabbit video. If you were to take his language the way he thinks that he's what he thinks rises to the level of him being stalked, he did that to me. Oh, Tangela goaded him into coming onto my channel, and he came creeping in. So, I mean, it just depends on your interpretation of of the word stalked. But harassing, he's been accused of harassing people all the time. I mean, hell, when he first got onto Clubhouse, one of the first videos I saw was when he got confronted later on by the Silver Star guy, Clubhouse user, and I don't know if he's still using it, when he made that older woman cry, a fellow Christian, I think she's in her 70s, and he upset her so badly, and it turned into this whole thing. And he, hell, I think I think Matt Adams might have been involved in that even back then.
See, this is what they are. Johnny Hawes, Matt Adams, and others, and I think you're guilty of this too. You're attention whores. You have no standards.
Attention whores with no standards. How many times he hasn't done it recently, but I think it was a year or two ago. It seemed like every other time I heard a video of him talking about it, he was trying to goad Matt Dillahunty from a distance to debate him. Maybe it was longer than 2 years ago. And talking about how he never would. Um, and by he, I mean Matt Dillahunty would never face him because Darth is too scary. So now Tom Rabbit has done us the favor of tacking this little gem on at the end.
You basically reduce yourself, your manhood, to be a little bitch. Men don't need to talk to each other like you just spoke to me. Like, women do stuff like that. Women do the whole, if you're friends with the friend, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. Like, who says that? Like, what man says you can't be friends with who you can be friends with to be my friend? Like, who says that?
Hey. From one of his own acolytes. That's words come back to haunt him. So yeah, that's it. That's it for that one. Michael, yeah, you did miss it, but you didn't miss much. I mean, it's just Darth Dawkins again. So, but yeah, I'm glad you stopped by. Now, anyway, better late than never. So, yeah, so Darth's attempts to discipline Matt and John didn't go well, and what do you do? I don't know how active he's been on there. I need to get back onto Clubhouse and take a look around and see what's going on over there. But I was always blocked for the most part. But I don't know how active he's being over there. But if he's getting to this point, Darth is going to end up kind of corralling himself into a completely different group of people, and I really feel like that kind of audience has gotten kind of small, and I think his frustration at this point is that he knows he can't hang with them. He can't go into one of these larger rooms. And recently I see quite a few of them. It'll be Tom Rabbit, Jack Angstrike, and Godless Girl, and Haiti, possibly Daniel Nero, and others. And some of these other guys are trying to mix it up with them, like Johnny and Matt Adams and others. But you won't see Darth going in there and throwing down. And so and this is something that I find weird. I do think a lot of this is about attention seeking for Darth, but it's attention seeking in a very controlled way. He really wants to put himself in a position where I think he can't be, where he's not vulnerable. And I've mentioned before that I think that I notice a difference when he's in control of a room and his tone of voice versus when he is a guest in a room and his tone of voice. Then it's usually a little bit more on edge. He seems a lot more nervous. And I don't know really. Well, I mean, I do know why that is, because I mean, when you go in there, you don't know if you're going to get kicked or removed or not. But it shouldn't really. I mean, for him, you wouldn't think it'd be all that nerve wracking. He'd be kind of used to it. But yeah, it seems like the one thing that he's trying to do, more and more of this is looking like kind of a self-defeating and pathetic cry for help. He wants to be able to have these conversations with people, but they're not conversations. He needs to lay down the law, and if he doesn't get to do that often enough, then he starts to feel kind of cooped up and emasculated. And I don't know really where that desire comes from. I don't entirely understand that. I mean, I understand the idea behind wanting control in your life and these kinds of things, but having it fixate that kind of way, and I'm not trying to diagnose this guy remotely. This is just sort of what the impression that I get from him emotionally, that this is what he needs as an emotional release. This is probably his main social outlet. Because I think if he had in real life healthy social outlets, he wouldn't be having these conversations, because he couldn't afford to be this unyielding, unless he was just on here to troll. But those people usually come across as different. So, the more I cover him, the more I think that this dude is. I mean, I kind of do it for the lulz, but at the same time, I think he's kind of fundamentally broken, long past needing therapy. I mean, it's not too late. I don't think it's ever too late for that, but he needs to do something. So anyway, that's enough of wondering about that. Darth versus Jack, ultimate dumpster fire. Well, if you've never seen one of the classic Darth Dawkins, Jack Angstrike discussions, whew, man, those are bad. Those are really, they would get really, really crazy. And I think Jack has been around like Pal Talk and stuff. I think he was around these discussions and stuff even before Darth Dawkins. So anyway, with that, I'm probably going to leave it there. I will try to get another one in. The Tom had done one, and so did Atheist Discussions, Daz's channel. They got a video out with a discussion between Amber Rose and Darth Dawkins, and it's about an hour long. And I'm trying to decide if I want to kind of go through the whole thing or listen to it and maybe take a couple of try to get a couple of snaps out of it, you know, a couple timestamps, and see if there's anything good there. I've listened to some of it, the first 10 minutes of it or so. It's okay. I think she does an okay job. I haven't gotten to a point where he's gotten into anything beyond what he normally kind of does to people. It is kind of interesting that I mean, I could already kind of analyze, like, based on how he's trying to communicate with her, that what he's starting out with is not, it's not really tracking with where he should be kind of concluding where she's at. You know, she's not a theologian, she's not a philosopher. That's not the way she's approaching this. She's approaching atheism and belief states from very, you know, very plain English kind of perspectives. Very, you know, I think commonly held conceptions of religion and faith and what atheism is as a psychological disposition. And I don't think Darth is prepared to even kind of like meet her at that level. And so I think it's gonna, like I said, I think I maybe made 8 minutes into it, and it's already sounding like it's starting to just veer off course, largely because of him. Like, you know, you give him the wheel and he will drive it into a wall. So, but yeah, with that being said, I will let everybody go. And it's Wednesday, so happy Wednesday to everybody. For those of you, you know, it might be Thursday for some of you already. Have a great rest of your week. I will try to be back to do a longer video. Again, I'm still trying to figure out how to cover that Amber Rose one, and I got a couple other ones that I'm going to be trying to get started here. So with that being said, I'm going to drop this thing off. Thank you for the super chat, Viva Hernando, and thank you all for the, you know, as always, the great live chat. It's always fun. Have a great night, and until next time, I hope you all take care of yourselves, have fun, and good night.